Welcome to everyone except Paramount Pictures, because they're a bunch of fuckers. The original version of this episode contains supporting clips from the Hellraiser 2022 reboot, but Paramount Pictures decided to block it for copyright even though every clip utilized was already freely available on YouTube. So I've replaced it all with hilarious nonsense. Enjoy and eat a dick, Paramount.
All right, Ted, it's us. We're here.
Depot.
This is Depot Devoid, and we are finally starting to descend into the realms of Halloween gore fests and frightmares and little demons from beyond the grave and that sort of thing. Um, and so I have had you endure the 2022 Hulu original movie, which just sounds so ridiculous when I say it out loud. Hulu original movie, Hellraiser, which is a remake of Hellraiser, which was an adaptation of a novella called The Hellbound Heart. And I've asked you to do this largely because I know that you have no history with the Hellraiser franchise, and apparently with Clive Barker in general, at least as an author, although maybe you've unwittingly seen some other movie that he had a hand in. But yeah, you're not a Hellraiser guy at all.
I'll be your Cenobite.
Have you been once Cenobitten and will now forevermore be twice shy?
Color me uninterested. I'm Ted Fagan, and I'm officially uninterested by Hellraiser 2022.
That I'm sure is a completely fair response.
Before
we get
hold
into
up. Let me show you something real quick. For everybody watching along at home, these are my notes for Hellraiser 2022. As you and everyone else who's watching this with their eyes will see, there are no notes.
So you have a lot of thoughts about Hellraiser 2022, I see. Before we get into the details of that, if it's even worth getting into any, let me ask you this hypothetical. The themes of this movie, which for, if someone else out there is utterly unfamiliar with Hellraiser, it's this world is basically a world of interdimensional hedonists who seek more and more extreme sensory experiences. And those stories often revolve around regular human beings who seek to commune with these folks through the medium of a mysterious puzzle box. This Is there a version of this story which would interest you, or is this outside of the realm of horror that would interest you full stop, do you think?
Well, let's discuss that after we talk about the movie.
Well, I will warn you, and the reason that I asked you is because it is not really possible for me to experience this movie on its own, and I sort of tried to do that and to study it a bit, but the fact is, like, I watched Hellraiser in 1987 when it came out. I read the novella on which it is based when I was in high school. I watched at least all of the theatrical sequels when they arrived, which is 3 sequels, increasingly terrible sequels, if you can imagine that. Uh, and and all of the direct-to-video ones that followed that. And I read the comics when those were coming out when I was in high school, and I read the other comics that were coming out in the 2010s. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I have been steeped in the Hellraiser mythology for 35 years. So it's really hard to experience this movie as its own independent creation. And so I'm sort of interested if it works at all, and even if it's like something that you don't enjoy, is it something that like that you could appreciate, or does it just completely fail on every level? Because it's my relationship with it is weird and complicated.
Okay, well, in that case, let me pour through my very copious notes and give a synopsis of this film. There's a horny, sweaty girl who's living with her brother, and she fucks some dude a bunch. And then her brother is all like, hey, I don't like that guy. What are you doing not doing the drugs out of rehab? And she's like, fine, you're a dick. And then she goes and fucks her dude a while longer. And then eventually they go and drink a little bit and steal a box. And then, people start dying. And then they're trying to figure out what's going on. And there's a bunch of lore that's obviously being ignored that's lasted over 35 years of stuff that they don't really go into, but they expect you to know, glossing over all of the details.
That's part of my question too, is like, how well can you follow what's happening if you don't know any of those previous beats?
It's not too hard to follow it, but the issue is that they're really glossing over something rather than making a remake. They're just telling a story expecting people to know all the stuff already. If you don't, it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, I was obviously supposed to catch that happening, which isn't that difficult. But what it comes down to in the end for me is this movie is not particularly well thought out, not particularly intelligently done, but it is a very clear remake of 1990s horror films in general. They did catch that feeling incredibly well, much better than anything that I've seen in the last 25 years. They did a good job of calling back to the 90s. And then it comes down to, since we're doing a short synopsis here, Matt, what's this movie really about?
I ignoring the fact that what it's really about is homage. Uh, I think that it's too muddled to be really about anything as a theme. I think it wants to be about redemption because it's focusing so hard on aspects of Riley's journey, but it never focuses that journey itself. Because she is an addict and she's in recovery, and that's sort of where we start with her, is she's already entering a redemption arc, which then she gets pulled away from, and she copes with it not too badly, all things considered, but they just keep losing the thread. And so I don't know, it's not really, I don't think it's about anything other than a lot of people involved in a movie trying to find their way to putting this remake on the screen. And I don't think, you pointed out that it's not particularly well thought out, and that is the biggest problem with trying to say what this movie is about, is because it's not particularly well thought out. It has a lot of interesting pieces, which on first viewing I just sort of enjoyed, which I'll get into later as to why that was so easy for me to do. But on subsequent viewings, it becomes less and less satisfying. What, as someone who's never seen any of this, what is it about? Because I know what Hellraiser is about in a larger sense, but I don't know what this is about.
This is attempting to be about redemption. They don't pull it off very well. They're trying to show somebody who has made bad choices a lot, and everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of the people in her life are just judging her for those bad choices, and then curious about what is it that you've done now that's made this other bad thing happen. And
they don't believe in her.
Yeah, not at all. To be fair,
they don't believe in the redemption story that she's already in.
Right.
Because she's not doing it perfectly.
Well, yeah, and she's not doing it the way that they want her to be doing it. And to be perfectly fair, she did get sort of fooled into going and committing a big crime to steal the box.
Yes.
But that was only her sort of getting fooled. That was her
she was
actively making that choice.
She was easily manipulated, but it wasn't a choice that she was making in that moment. It was, I mean, it was a choice she was making to go along with it, but none of that was originating with her. I mean, she was targeted by someone who, unbeknownst to her, was hired by Voight to do exactly this. So she's basically being dragged along. And that's one of the things that I find interesting about this, and also frustrating, is that the Hellraiser mythos, the old one, and also this one, at least its stated mythos, is that the Cenobites are beings that are interested in extreme sensation. Pain and pleasure are sort of meaningless terms to them in their elevated states of experience. But explorers on the further rims of but the people that are involved with them are supposed to be that as well. That's how they find each other. The Cenobites ostensibly used to be people like us, who have gone on this journey. But most of the time, the stories that we are told in the Hellraiser movies, and also in this movie, are people whose relationships with the Cenobites and with the puzzle box are largely accidental. Riley did not get involved in this because she is seeking extreme sensory experiences. She used to, that she was an addict, so she has that potential, but they don't even exploit that parallel, really. They just, that's just part of her story, but
I don't think they even tell you what she's an addict of.
No, I mean, she's doing some pills, so maybe some pills.
Maybe
it was
also getting hammered.
The specifics were apparently not that important to them. I mean, they don't give this to us. I think we're supposed to draw a parallel between her addiction and that sort of personality type, but it's not. It doesn't. That doesn't feel true. That feels maybe like it was true on the page, as a mathematical parallel, but not in the movie. That was I didn't see that. Voight was that guy. Voight is that sort of person, but we don't even really see him doing that because he never does anything that he can't hire someone else to do.
Well, and he isn't that. He complains and wants to reject the gift and says that
he claims to be that, but he's not really.
And he did not like it where he got. He's like, it's all pain. That's all it's about. It's not what
he didn't like his nerve loom.
Yeah, he was a big baby about getting what he wanted. But
nerve loom wasn't on my Christmas list.
Yeah, it's hurting me. But I mean, when it comes down to it, she does end up having opportunities to not redeem herself, like when they're putting the box in her hand, choose another, to stab somebody else so that they get off, and she ends up stabbing one of the Cenobites, and they're like, oh, hey, well, that's kind of lame.
That was very interesting to me as a previous Hellraiser fan. That was a very interesting choice. I actually liked when I was watching that last night. I actually really enjoyed that moment because of the Hell Priest. She pauses when that happens. Like Riley stabs the Chatterer, and the Chatterer sort of staggers backwards. And then the chains come, but the chains don't come until the priest signals them. Like, she's just watching, and there's this moment where you're like, she could decide not to honor that and not allow the Cenobites to be part of that sacrifice, but she just kind of decides, like, huh, okay. And I thought that was a really interesting little moment. Let's talk about it. Like, I don't need to like go point by point through this whole movie. I like to talk about the Hell Priest, or Pinhead, as people like to call her, although she's credited as the priest. And the Cenobites in general. That's what brought me here in the first place. Like many people my age, I got into horror movies in the 80s because I was really interested in physical makeup effects and practical special effects. I was the kid that had all the stacks of Fangoria magazine, and I watched Hellraiser because Doug Bradley in the original Pinhead makeup was like amazing to me, and I had to see that. And that's, I mean, those movies offered some really fascinating imagery, and they stood apart because Hellraiser had this sort of weird elegance and poetry to both the dialogue and the images that were largely absent from other movies that were in the horror genre at the time, and it was a really interesting thing to watch.
The box. You opened it. We came.
It's just a puzzle box!
Oh no. It is a means to summon us.
Who are you?
Explorers in the further regions of experience. Demons to some. Angels to others.
It was a mistake! I didn't mean to open it! It was a mistake!
What they've done here is sort of recreate a whole new set of Cenobites, most of which are new. But the Chatterer and the Hell Priest or Pinhead are both sort of riffs on Cenobites from the original series. And I think they're fascinating. I mean, that's why I was looking forward to this movie when it was announced, when I started to see the art from it, because there were really cool looking practical makeup effects coming, and I was very excited to see that. And to you who wasn't watching the old ones, do these, I mean, what do these look like? Are they cool? Are they creepy? Are they gross? I mean, are they effective monsters?
I mean, they could be. I mean, the Chatterer kind of was a little bit, but I mean, the other ones, I mean, it looked kind of generic, like they're trying to probably produce something that might have showed up in a comic book at some point, but didn't really take itself particularly seriously. Uh, the the peeled skin wasn't even. I didn't feel like it was done very well.
Here's an interesting thing: is that I think it would have made a huge difference if they weren't so dry.
Yeah,
They should
like
be
aged beef.
The red parts should be wet, and I think that would have made a really big difference.
Yeah.
I love the sculptures. I think it's lovely artwork. I was very, very excited when I first saw some sketches and the early pictures that were coming out of Jamie Clayton, the actress who plays the priest, and like her makeup. And the first time I watched the movie, I was like, this is really cool. And they're not showing it too much, but we're getting some good glimpses and some cool stuff. And I like her performance a lot. But the longer I sit with the designs, like the more I wish that I could change them a little bit. They're just not, they don't hold up as well after that first initial excitement that I had for them. They're really cool, but not as cool as they could be.
Yeah, I kept finding myself watching this movie making kind of a quizzical expression as it goes and actively thinking, huh, I'm watching this. All right. And again, you know, and this is my first experience with this series. It might have been better if I had more experience with it before, but there's clearly a lot that's been lost by having no relationship with it.
Right.
I don't feel that having been introduced to this as the starting point, that I would be like, well, I'd want to watch another one of those.
That is that's absolutely fair. I mean, and this is not like I mean, I would obviously, like, if they make another one, I'll watch it. Like, because I'll get to see more pictures of Cenobites. So like clearly
Yeah.
I will watch that. I will hope for a, a little more from the story. I don't know. there are so many things in this that are definitely callbacks, but it's also I mean it's sort of inspired by the same source material, so it's not all just riffing on the movies. I mean the original Hellraiser is a pretty good adaptation of the Hellbound Heart in terms of the actual story of it, which is very different from this movie. It's a complete. They're not attempting to do a new adaptation of that source material at all. This is all of it is original, other than like the use of the Hell Priest character, who has become so associated with the franchise. Like you couldn't possibly make a Hellraiser movie that didn't have some version of Pinhead. Nobody would watch it. It would be like when they made Halloween 3 and it wasn't about Michael Myers, and everybody burned down the theater.
I gotta say one thing that I was extremely surprised about. There was plenty of fucking, but I don't think I saw one female nipple. That was a shocker to me.
Huh. You may be right. I mean, there might have been some without skin around them.
Maybe.
I'm trying to think with the gasp, and the mother Cenobite maybe. But yeah, it's not not a very nipply show.
Yeah, there was definitely sex, but they weren't going for trying to get crowd in with the nudity. I was surprised.
It was definitely not about titillation.
For lacking plot, I was surprised that they didn't throw in some boobs.
Well, and it's not like super. I mean, it's not like assaulting you with a lot of gore either. It's not like, if you are not into the story, that they're giving you a whole bunch of like red stuff and meat to make up for it. It's really, I mean, there's a lot of violence in it, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot more violence in like an episode of Preacher.
Yes,
but it's quite long too. It's like it's just over 2 hours, I think. I mean, if you count the credits, which is definitely longer than it needs to be. It doesn't really have 121 minutes worth of story in it.
No, it doesn't.
But I will say, I mean, I've watched it, I think 3 times now. Once out of excitement, the second time a few weeks later, just sort of late at night to revisit, and then now to take notes. And it is there are definitely things that are laid in that are appreciated on a subsequent viewing, but the movie itself, it doesn't, like, it's not good enough to command a second viewing if you weren't already on board with it. I think, like, I'm sure if you watched it again, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool the way that leads to that. But it's like, you wouldn't, it's not so good that I'd be like, oh, Ted, you gotta go back to the beginning and watch this again. It's amazing.
Right.
Like, it'll really, like, you'll realize its brilliance and all of the beautiful seeds that it laid and planted that will flourish at the climax.
Yeah, not a lot of that.
But that said, I quite enjoyed Jamie Clayton's performance, and I think that I would love to see her have the opportunity to play the Hell Priest again if this movie performed well enough for Hulu by whatever metric to warrant a sequel. I think that given more interesting material, like, she could do a really good job. I thought that her performance is very understated, but like she was very creepy.
Absolutely.
And I would love to see some more of that. But she didn't have a whole lot to do, which is, I mean, on the one hand, that's good. You don't want to overdo it with the Cenobites, and that was one of the things about the original too that made people so interested, is because they're very, very striking, but you don't see them on screen all that much. I think you definitely see the Cenobites more in this movie than you did in the original. It's probably also a lot cheaper to make their outfits now, so it might have been easier.
That's probably true.
The Cenobites, as you see them in this movie, they look very different, but their appearance, I think, is dictated by the appearance of the original ones, in that it's a deliberate swerve from them, and a deliberate attempt to find another relationship with transgression. Clive Barker was a big explorer of the S&M clubs, the queer clubs in the 80s, and a lot of the original story was inspired by the leather culture and piercing and cutting and that sort of transgressive behavior, which was relatively commonplace but not that well known in mainstream society or media at that time. And so he sort of took a lot of those elements and turned them up, and the Cenobites were inspired by that, and their appearances in the original movies are very clearly created out of escalating leather and S&M culture. And that whole idea is extremely mundane in 2023. And so they found another sort of an interesting approach, is to make these crazy S&M leather outfits, except that it's out of their own bodies, which is like that makes sense to me, as a step in another direction. But like you nailed it with something that had been bothering me, which is that it just doesn't look right. Like, I think it's a good idea, but what you're seeing on the designs is, it doesn't look appropriate. Like, that's like, you could actually make that out of the person that you're looking at. It's a cool design to see the Gasp's throat stretched open and the skin sort of like peeled to these wire arcs, and they're very interesting designs, but like not what you could actually make out of a person. Like, I feel like they're trying to suggest something that they're not accurately portraying, and I wish that they had maybe just actually done that. Like, that could have looked like, maybe it wouldn't have looked as extreme if you did it in a way that it's like, you look like you could turn a person into this monster. But I think that if I saw something that looked that close, like, oh, you could do that to me, like,
Yeah.
that would be creepier than these like crazy designs where like you've turned your leg skin into skirts, which, I mean, it looks cool, but like, could you do that? Like, I don't think it actually works. And maybe it would be creepier if it did. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a miss. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's okay.
I've definitely seen
But for
worse.
me, yeah, absolutely. But I think that, like, and one of the reasons I wanted another perspective is because, like I said, the first 4 Hellraisers were theatrical films of increasingly poor quality. And then 4 direct-to-video sequels, most of which did not even start their scripts as Hellraiser movies, but other scripts that the studio owned that were then shoehorned into the Hellraiser franchise, all with the same actor playing Pinhead, is as sort of the only connective tissue. And so by the time the last few came out, they're fucking garbage. And like, I'll watch it once because I want to see Doug Bradley as Pinhead, because I like Doug Bradley as Pinhead. And then it's like, this is like, it's so hard to get through because it's so shitty. And this one is so much less shitty than those. And so in that sense, my anticipation was well rewarded, because the level of shittiness of Hellraiser 2022 is like it's, I probably enjoyed it more than any of them since Hellraiser 2, honestly, which was a long fucking time ago.
That speaks volumes.
And this was, yeah, this was way more interesting. Like, it had some ideas. They didn't get fleshed out that well. But in terms of potentially laying groundwork to come back and tell a better story, or a story that expands on those ideas, like, I think it's a good start. It could
It's
be
within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And if they don't ever, if this was a one-off, like, it's not terrible. And it could have been really terrible. They
Yes.
often are.
Yes, it could have been.
But yeah, I don't know. It's the comics are better. I prefer the comic. It's the puzzle box is barely even explored in this either, other than just a series that sort of keeps track of the body count.
It needs the arc to move.
Yeah, there's a lot of relationships in this movie that are yeah, they're not really explored. And I'm trying. I now talking to you, like I'm. It's easier to sort of put myself in your shoes, and I'm sort of like getting a better glimpse of this movie from the outside, and how challenging it. Like if I had never seen that, I'm trying to think like if I watched this, would I, as you, understand at all why I was excited about it? Like, like that's gotta be hard to see. And not just because I said I, as you, understand what I was excited about.
I get it. I understand. But we're going to have to take ourselves a brief break.
All right. I'm going to go solve the puzzle, and I'll be back as soon as you hear the bells.
Sounds good. Try not to get cut.
You want a cookie, little girl?
Welcome back to Meat Puppets, a podcast about bands and movies from the 1990s. As always, I am your littlest brother and bass player, Ted Theodore Fagan, and with me, as always, is my oldest brother,
the man who will tear your soul apart. Oh, wait, that's the other movie.
Well, hey, it's bleeding in for you.
I'm sure that Jamie Clayton will tear my soul apart, too.
Maybe
that was sort of one of the gimmicks of this movie too, is that the character of the priest has been recast with a female actor, which was interesting. The source material, the Hellbound Heart, that character is in the book. That's sort of the closest of the Cenobites that appear in the movies. That's the closest one that is represented like as a direct analog of a character in the book. In the book, her grid is not carved into her skin, but rather tattooed onto her flesh. And at each intersection, there is a jeweled nail is driven through the skin into the skull. And so the jewels that sort of the pearl tips that they put on her pins are in fact like directly referenced in the book. And she is described, the character is described specifically as being androgynous and having sort of a lilting sort of sing-song voice, which is definitely not what Doug Bradley was playing in the first 8 movies. So they both are like, neither one of them is further from the source material than the others in terms of performers. It was also interesting that the people who always complain about gender swapping characters in any medium were sort of confused about what to be angry about, because Jamie Clayton is also a trans actress. So in order for them to be angry that Pinhead was a girl, they had to actively acknowledge that Jamie Clayton was a girl, which also like made them bristle.
Well, now that you've explained that, you've really offended me and my right-wing Republican views, Matt. I can't understand
that's why
how
I had
you would
watch
think
this.
that I would be upset by any kind of transgender gender swapping with my right-wing Republican Christian views. This is upsetting to me. And I feel like Space Jesus would be really upset too. And he's probably about ready to get in a rap battle with regular Jesus.
I made you watch this because I wanted you to experience hell. And this is your hell, Ted.
As a right-wing Republican Christian, man, I don't believe that's possible for me.
She's going to play Freddy Krueger next.
Well, I mean, that actually sits perfectly with my right-wing Republican views.
Oh, because that would make her a child molester.
Yeah.
Okay, then
we've just taken my joke and turned it right around into like sensible territory if I was being a realistic human being who actually had Republican, conservative, Christian, right-wing Republican views.
Stay tuned for Jamie Clayton as Michaela Myers.
I'll be playing somebody other than a right-wing Republican here.
You will never play anyone other than a right-wing Republican.
I'm going to need to get a mug that says
You
that.
are the GOP golden boy from here on out.
I need another coffee mug that says that.
I'm sure we can find one for you.
GOP golden boy, Fox News lover.
Well, your
Fox
birthday
News,
is coming.
Yeah, Fox News and lover have to be in entirely different colors and fonts.
So you are separately a part of the Fox News organization and also a lover.
Exactly. We can interpret this in very many ways, just like my right-wing Republican views.
You and Tucker.
I'm a conservative.
Somebody's got to replace him.
This ain't Bud Light I'm drinking. But hey, I don't have money to throw at the Bud Light problem.
What about the Hellraiser problem?
Uh,
How are you going to rescue this franchise, Ted?
Rescue this franchise, huh? Well, I mean,
That's
having
your
no
job.
other relationship with it.
We're here to
no.
ruin Transformers and save Hellraiser.
Let them both fuck it out.
I wonder if there is a viable way to combine those franchises.
Yeah, there's a cube.
An Energon
Sam,
cube?
get to the cube. No, it's the Allspark.
Is the lament
Allspark
configuration an Energon cube? What if Ratchet accidentally just inserts the Hellraiser box into his chest because he thinks it's full of power? And it is, but not the kind of power he was expecting.
I think Ratchet would probably be all right with that.
Just like as a character.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I maybe don't adequately differentiate the individual Transformers in my head.
Well, in the newer movies,
characters.
It's a lot harder to differentiate them in the new movies.
I have already forgotten that movie that we watched.
That's all right. Now we understand that the Allspark is also the what is the box called?
Well, I don't know if I don't even remember if they really go into it. It's actually called the La Marchand box, after the man who built it. I think they might use that word one time in the movie. It is also sometimes referred to as the lament configuration, which they only, again, say at the very end because they've given a different name to each of the configurations of the box. All of that is new to this movie. The box does open and do different shapes in the old, but they did the whole, like, you feed the box blood and it changes to one thing, and you feed it again and it changes to another in a progression. That is all new material. Like, that is new stuff that gives structure to this movie, which kind of is interesting. But again, like, I don't prefer it to the way it used to be. Like, I feel like it kind of locks you into that structure. Like, that's what, at least that's what it looks like to me. Like, if that's how the box works, then that's how the box works. And so if there is another movie, it's just gonna have to be someone else following this same series of events, right? Like, that's because that's how the box works.
Yeah. However, now that we've come this far, I might as well talk about something that I would have taken a note about if I was taking notes. That really does piss me off when the horny sweaty girl
Fair enough
was sleeping with the dude that tricked her into stealing
Riley.
The box. Why did he steal the box from the horny sweaty girl and try and run away with it if the purpose was in fact to get her over to Voight?
Yes, that actually was interesting, because I think that was a real character moment for Trevor. I think that happened because obviously Trevor does believe her because Trevor has at least some understanding of what's happening from the very beginning. I don't know how much Voight told him, but he obviously knows that there's monsters involved, because he's seen Voight and his nerve loom. I think what happened there in that moment is it became really real for Trevor. Like at some point, he knows what's going to happen because Voight's told him, but now like he's seeing this shit, like, and he's seeing what's actually happening to Riley. And I think he suddenly realized what that means and what is going to happen to Riley in the near future when Trevor takes the box and tries to run off with it, even though we all know now that he was a traitor, who he has been working for Voight all along. And my feeling on that moment is that Trevor, who knew what was happening because Voight told him to some extent what was happening, after that experience with Riley, it became real for him, and he realized what was actually going to happen to Riley in the near future. And I think that he had an actual moment where he wanted to save her. I think that he was honestly taking that box because he was ready to betray Voight in order to save Riley. And obviously that didn't go as planned for him. But I think that was a real moment. I think he did that because he was trying to save her. And I'm sure it wouldn't have worked. But I think that's why he did it.
Maybe. You might be right. I just still feel like that was misdirection to try and not let us who are actually trying to pay attention to the plot find the plot hole. He was obviously a nasty
boy. I mean that's fair. That could also be true. That was the feeling that I had when I watched it this time. And this movie is not smart enough to just assume that it was doing that for the best possible reasons. But I in watching it this time, in full knowledge of who Trevor was as a character, that was the moment that's what I thought of that moment. And I think there's a lot of times where when you watch this knowing that Trevor's working for Voight, where it's actually pretty obvious, like it makes sense in hindsight the way his character behaves and the things that he says and does. And that moment there is the only one that really stands out. And I think it really is just him as a person being like, yes, let's get rid of this shit. And I think that maybe if she had agreed in that moment, like things might have gone differently. Probably not, because I think that Pinhead was pretty into her at that point. I feel like in the old stories, most of the time there needed to be more intent behind someone's relationship with the box. Like there were characters who did it by accident, but I feel like most of the time when a character is accidentally involved with the Cenobites, there's a little more wiggle room. And they know it's because that person is not actually seeking out their pleasures and gifts. And in this one, it's much more like, oh yeah, there's rules, like you have to summon them, and like they can't do anything until you feed the box, but they also can kind of make you do it, like because she didn't cut herself when she solved the first configuration. And so they were like, well, it was meant for you, so we're gonna fucking do this anyway. And that seems like a little bit of a cheat. Maybe it's a technicality, but they sort of made her bring Matt, like they sort of psychically summoned him. That wasn't her choice. That wasn't his choice. And then later on the bridge, when she's getting ready to throw it away, Pinhead like literally like springs the box to cut her. And it's like, well, you're marked now, so we're going to get you eventually. So if not you, then another. So they seem to, like, there's rules, but they seem to have like a lot of freedom to force the technicalities and not really be bound by the rules. And I like that seems a little, it's a little loose.
It is.
For me.
It really is.
it's
But
one
it's still
of many things that not thought through as clearly as it could be.
Yeah.
But again, they're trying to, I'm sure that the intent there is to create some new stuff with the mythology while also leaving things sufficiently open that someone else can tell stories within this framework without being totally constricted. But that's why I'm not sold on the whole configuration progression. It just like it seems too pat, and I fear that any further entries in this series will be really by the numbers.
Well, it's also early on enough in it, and it was poorly well done enough for them to be like, no, it's not really like that. We just did it that one time.
I mean that's true. That's fair. And
We changed the rules.
there's a lot that we don't know. There was someone online complaining about how the Cenobites are just they're just murderers in this one, and because they just kill people and that's it. And like, well, I don't feel like you don't really know that, like, because there was more to, like, we see more in some of the old stories of people who get involved with the Cenobites and live with their gifts for a long time and then escape and that sort of thing. And I think that people are assuming that all of the characters that we see, like, so like Nora in the van, when the van sort of stretches out and turns into hell and Pinhead comes and plays her throat with one of her pins, like that whole sequence, and then she gets sort of like torn or eviscerated or something, and they're like, well, okay, well, she's dead. Well, I mean, maybe, but we're also, I mean, we're not in the van, you know, this isn't happening in the real world in real time in a normal way. So just because what you see looks like death doesn't mean that, like, it doesn't mean that they're dead and now their suffering is over. It could still easily mean that this is a never-ending experience for that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we don't see, and I think that there is definitely room for more. But I do, like, while I was initially very interested in seeing the redesign of the box and those new shapes and that sort of idea of the progression, the more I think about it, the less happy I am about that. And it seems like an interesting variation, but more limiting than full of opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, also as you were saying, some live with their gifts for a long time. We've got Voight, who lived with his gift for 6 years before this movie starts into the second arc.
Yes.
And then he is also not killed at the end. He continues on with the gift that they exchanged with him. And they offered a gift to Riley. She just said, I don't want that.
And that was really interesting. And that was actually that may be my favorite part of the movie, is that moment that she has with the priest, when she acknowledges that no matter what, that sort of monkey's paw of trying to get her brother back is never going to work the way she wants it to. And it was interesting because the day after, I avoided anything online about it until I was able to watch the movie the first time, and then I engaged with a Hellraiser group the day after I saw it, and people were talking about how Riley had chosen nothing, and how obviously disappointed Pinhead looked at that decision. And I had exactly the opposite read when I watched it. And I felt like she totally respected that choice, and that it was actually like one of the most painful and torturous choices that she could have made.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what she was saying.
You know,
you're going
like,
to live.
I don't
with
know if
this
that's what
now.
anyone else took away from it, but I saw that, right. She, like, bitter and brief. Like, it's like from her perspective, from the Hell Priest's perspective, like, that's the smallest, most miserable choice a person could have made, is to live with this knowledge for a brief lifetime of sadness and self-torture. Like, and that was like, she was like cool with that, like, nice, you've chosen the lament configuration, sweet. Like I thought
Idiot.
that was a great moment. Like I liked that end a lot.
That interaction was probably the best part of the movie, as far as I'm concerned.
Overall, I mean, for all of its, I mean, it has a lot of script weaknesses, and just like it's just kind of like it's sort of pedestrian. But there are some lovely little shining moments in it, and overall, I liked the cast quite a lot. Like I thought that everybody, as underwritten as many of the characters were, um, performed them very well. I liked Riley very much. I thought she was terrific. Weird fact: her real life mom is Bobby Hill from King of the Hill. Uh,
All right.
I thought that she was terrific. I thought she was a great lead for the movie. I liked. I mean the priest is the only Cenobite that has any particular character. Everyone else is barely written at all. But I thought she did a great job.
I would agree.
I'm sure that they had a great deal of nervousness about trying to recast the priest in any form, because there were two, I think, direct-to-video sequels that had a different actor as Pinhead, and I watched 20 minutes of one of them before even I gave up. And so it was tough, I'm sure, and you don't want to oversell it. You don't want to try to you want to avoid like trying to do too many echoes of the original character, but I thought they did a really good job. They did the big callback that did right at the end was the line, we have such sights to show you, is a big one from Hellraiser that Pinhead says. And I was a little bit like she performs the line fine. Like the line read is there's I have no problem with it, but it was like it just didn't feel necessary, and it was such a button. Like it was how they were ending it before transforming Voight into a Cenobite, and that just felt overdone. Like I didn't need that, and it left like a bit of a sour taste in my mouth that I was much happier before that. But if you don't know that we have such sights to show you was a big thing that Pinhead said, then maybe you don't care, and it doesn't make you feel dirty.
Yeah. Nah. It's just uninteresting.
So I'm sensing that you would not give this like a 13 out of 10.
No. Maybe a 4.
On a scale on a scale of Willow to Police Academy.
Willow, the new series.
I haven't seen any of that.
You're welcome. Don't. Just don't. Don't.
I have heard that from other sources.
Yeah, don't.
If
you like Willow, let Willow lie.
Okay. I remember you guys watching Willow a lot when we were younger, and then I didn't see it again forever, and then I put it on the day that Ian died, and I did not watch it in any meaningful way. I don't think it was on. It played. I remember parts of it happening in my presence, and I remember thinking about how Ian would have probably looked forward to the new series that did not premiere until after he passed. And part of me thought about watching that series, but I just, I have not been able to. And then I started hearing that I probably didn't want to. So I have not gone there, because it sounds like maybe it would not be a reward. In the way that, say, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I had to stop watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds because Ian died, and then eventually I was able to go back to that, and that was very rewarding.
Oh, it's great.
And I feel like maybe I don't want to have the opposite experience with Willow, which is what I have been promised.
I'm going to have to keep watching the unfortunate extension of Willow because I have started it and I am not happy about it. Not at all. I feel bad for Warwick.
You mean Leprechaun?
Yeah,
Have you seen all the Leprechauns? Should we do those?
I saw the first one.
How about if we only do Leprechaun in the Hood Part 2?
That sounds awful.
I have not seen it, but I would be willing to like bet my left foot that it is in fact awful.
Yeah, I don't think I could jump into a part 2 of a Leprechaun in the Hood.
I saw at least I saw at least 4 Leprechauns. 4 is when they get to space.
Yeah,
And I saw that
that's no.
once. It was worse than you're imagining. You know, the 4th Hellraiser movie also took place partly in space. And I'm going to say this on the record, way better than the 4th Leprechaun movie.
Yeah.
It's not what you'd call great.
I wouldn't expect so.
But it is better than actually probably any Leprechaun movie. Yeah, you know what? I'll say that positive, better than any Leprechaun movie, and I will fight anyone who thinks otherwise.
That sounds like a reasonable choice.
I will, in fact, I would even be willing to fist fight Jennifer Aniston, the star of Leprechaun.
I think you want to.
She doesn't play the
Jennifer
Leprechaun.
Aniston.
Look, I've been looking for an excuse to fist fight Jennifer Aniston for a long, long time, and I think she probably knows why.
Maybe we can get all of our many, many followers to start a GoFundMe to help promote this for you.
The fist fighting of Jennifer Aniston. Do you think we could get Courtney Cox to sponsor us?
Yes, but I also want one very big stipulation of this to be bring back Jennifer Aniston's old nose.
Well, I mean, it always lives on forever in the movie Leprechaun.
I know.
It's the only reason to watch Leprechaun, really.
You could also punch it back there.
I mean, it's no Princess Vespa's old nose.
Yeah.
Dr. Slotkin will give your daughter back her old nose.
Where did you get that?
That one wasn't real, Matt.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that Daphne Zuniga never looked like the Wicked Witch of the West?
Well, she did with aesthetics.
Wait, you mean like movie magic?
Yes.
So Daphne Zuniga is a Cenobite?
You remember in Spaceballs where they captured their stunt doubles?
Yeah, duh.
It's kind of like that.
That was Steven Tobolowsky who captured them. We actually just watched that last week.
I haven't seen it in a while, but I still could quote probably 45% to 65%.
Yeah, I mean, that summer that I stayed for a few weeks in California with Uncle Jim, it was like probably when I was 14, I think. I purchased the VHS of Spaceballs in California that summer and brought it back. And then you and Ian watched it every single day until, I don't know, probably until Ian died. Every single day. I think there was a period where I couldn't really watch Spaceballs because I had seen too much Spaceballs.
That's not a...
But now I can definitely watch Spaceballs again. And it is super funny.
It's great. We actually recently started watching some of History of the World Part 2.
I enjoyed that. It was fun.
It's pretty good. It's
I mean, History of the World was never my favorite Mel Brooks movie,
No,
but
not at
this
all.
was appropriately in keeping with it, and I think it totally works. And you can tell everybody is having a great time and is respectful of the material and kind of doing what they want with it. And I like most of those people, like it's a good group of comedians. Like I like that was a good series. I like that a lot. It's no Spaceballs this to the search for more money, but I'm glad that it happened.
Absolutely.
Now, if they could just make Bride of Young Frankenstein.
That'd be cool, but I don't think it's in the works.
No, and it would be terrible, and I would be super sad that it happened. So it's probably good that that's never going to.
That being said,
But I can dream. It's a nearly perfect absurd comedy.
It is.
So what Halloween confection will we be doing next?
Dracula Dead and Loving It?
Is that streaming somewhere?
I have no idea. That was a joke. I got no idea.
How do you feel about Body Snatchers?
Never seen it.
Any of them?
Didn't know there was more than one.
There's an original Invasion of the Body Snatchers from like
wait. Does that have Kiefer's dad?
The first remake does, yes. Both of those are actually really good. The original one, the main guy from the original one, 1957, is R.J. Fletcher from UHF. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, he was young sometime.
Yeah, he's quite young. It also has the original Morticia Addams.
That is also entertaining.
Yeah, and then the first remake from 1978,
starring Kiefer Sutherland's dad.
Yes, has not only Donald Sutherland but also Jeff Goldblum and Spock.
I remember Kiefer Sutherland's dad.
It's pretty good. I like both of them a lot.
All I'm going to say is I'm not going to make the noise.
Well, not until we're recording. So you're telling me you know how it ends?
I remember
I think everybody does.
That part of it and a little bit more. I remember it being good.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff. They sort of revisit it every once in a while because there's another one from like 1990-ish with like Meg Tilly and Forrest Whitaker, which is not as good. It's so 90s, but it's also like not a bad iteration. And then there's a terrible version from a while back with Nicole Kidman and James Bond. Yeah, that's the face that I made. I watched it once and it was trash. It's weird. But yeah, highly recommend the 50s and the 70s. It comes out every 20 years and sometimes it's good. And at least one of those is streaming. The 70s one is streaming on HBO or Hulu. I'll have to check, and the other one may or may not be. I'll look into that. But yeah, it's if you haven't seen those or are not real familiar with it, for sure, they're fun. The good Halloweeny, creepy kind of fun stuff.
All right. Well, I would watch that. Let's do the first one if it's available, since I've definitely not seen that one.
Okay, yeah. So I'll see what we can find, and if we can't do the first one, then we can do the other one. I mean, they're both awesome. But obviously, the classic is a classic. But that's one of the few examples where I feel like the remake is a really solid entry. It's sort of like going from the thing from Another World to John Carpenter's The Thing. It's like they're different, but they're both awesome.
Right. I agree with that. It's been a long time since I've seen either of them. Yeah, I think that we should watch both of The Thing.
I think that we should read Who Goes There and then watch the movies.
I'll have to see if it's available on book on tape because I am not going to find time for book booking right now.
That is fair. It is so old and probably in the public domain that it may very well be easy to find.
Right.
I bet you can find someone just reading it on Spotify.
Probably, but what if it's just an old man who's telling it like this?
Well, I mean,
and then
that would
fall
be
asleep
great.
while I'm doing work on the roof because it's just so uninteresting.
I mean, if that's what it is, then I feel like you should just consider yourself really lucky because that sounds amazing. And why would you complain about that? I
That's
downloaded
true.
it recently. So maybe let's see here. I do not. Come on, buddy. The place stank. A queer mingled stench that only the ice-buried cabins of the Antarctic camp know, compounded of reeking human sweat and a heavy fish oil stench of melted whale blubber.
Where's my whale blubber candles? All right, I think
Once again, that son of a bitch McCready had eaten all of my whale blubber, and I said to myself, I'm gonna go over to the Norwegian camp and I'm gonna borrow a cup of thing, and I'm gonna bring that cup of thing back, and I'm gonna slip it into the whale blubber, and then when McCready eats the whale blubber, you be the thing. That's how I'm going to snatch his body.
Love it. I'm sold.
Until next time.
All right.
I love you, Ted.
I love you too, Matt.
I hope you have a wonderful evening.
See you in the Depot Devoid.
In the Depot Devoid. Depot Devoid.
The Depot Devoid is that place your mind goes when you've lost your train of thought, but you haven't found a new one. The Depot Devoid podcast is hosted by Matt Fagan and Ted Fagan. Depot Devoid is not hosted by Ian Fagan because he died and we miss him. Find our full video episodes at Depot Devoid Podcast on YouTube. On social media, you can find us at Depot Devoid Podcast on Blue Sky, and for now, still on Facebook and Instagram. Or you can email us at depotdevoidpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you can listen to the show on all of your favorite podcast platforms. I've been looking for an excuse to fistfight Jennifer Aniston for a long, long time.
Enough.